Yo, welcome back to another episode of Outside the Box. It is the podcast slash video podcast slash SoundCloud podcast. Maybe we can consider ourselves SoundCloud rappers. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there in case either of you wanted to add that to your resume. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Thank you again for all of the support, guys. We really appreciate it. Your comments and everything have been absolutely amazing. Actually, a few of you guys tweeted and sent some DMs about things that we're going to actually implement into this show to make this show better and better for you guys, because we appreciate you listening and we appreciate you watching. Anyway, I am Jacques Slade. You can find me on the internets at Cousteau, but this show would not run without two of the coolest people that I know on the internets. They make this show happen. Again, I am just here as the pretty face. So Nick, go ahead, tell them who you are and what you do.
Nick Engvall, Nickengvall on all platforms. I spent a couple years working for Complex. I spent a couple years working for Finish Line. Been in the sneaker world for, I don't know, a decade or so plus. And also run a site called Sneaker History. But most importantly, Tiffany Beers. Let them know how they can find you. Tell them who you are, because we all know that you're the main reason we're all here talking today.
Tiffany Beers. You can find me on Instagram and YouTube. I spent 13 years at Nike innovating products. I spent 2 years at Rubbermaid innovating products. And yeah, I've kind of been in love with sport my whole entire life.
It's the layers. It's the layers. It's the layers. Every week we peel back a layer. So this week, usually, Tiffany introduces herself as I work at Nike, and I worked at. We found out last week she worked at Rubbermaid, but this week there was a little more added on to that. I don't know if you guys caught that, audience, but she innovates at Nike and she innovates at Rubbermaid. See, that is a little something more than just working at a company. I could be the guy that cleans the windows and I work at Nike and I work at Rubbermaid. But when I innovate, that says I do something else entirely. I'm not going to get into it. I'll leave it at that. I'll let the audience decide. But we get it. We totally understand. So welcome, guys. Thanks for joining again on the podcast. So today, and really this week, the main bit of news in the sneaker world comes from basketball, and it's not from where I think any of us expected the news to come from. So the folks over at Puma have dropped a bit of a bombshell this week. It wasn't exactly a secret, but their entrance into the market is, or I guess I should say back into the market, is strong. They've announced that there is now a Puma basketball division, or Puma basketball team, and they have a few people joining in on that team, some really big stars. So I'm just going to toss the question out to Nick. What do you think about Puma even stepping into the basketball arena at all?
I mean, I think it's exciting. I think that, there's kind of a perception in that basketball shoes are dead. But I think that, like the glass can be half empty or half full. And with with Puma stepping into it with a fresh take on what basketball shoes could be, especially with, they announcing that Jay-Z is going to be, kind of running the show, and their history with like Walt Frazier and the Clyde and like the suedes that are like, obviously lifestyle shoes, but the most important shoes in their, probably in their history as a company, at least here in the United States. I think that taking the players, they've got DeAndre Ayton and Marvin Bagley, right? So the two of them could be, they're both looking to do things differently than what is kind of the norm. And I would say that the norm for basketball shoes for a college athlete is to, of course, everybody wants a signature shoe, but you kind of got to prove yourself to a very high level to get that. You could take a chance with a company like Puma, or even like the Chinese brands that are, quick to sign older athletes, and potentially make like huge waves and very focused based on your own personality. So I think that those kind of things are a huge opportunity to take a piece of that pie, because I think between Nike and Jordan, that's probably what 70 to 80%, maybe even a little bit more of basketball right now. So, but there's the crossover element. Bringing Jay-Z into the mix is really the power move, in my opinion. And I think that this has been a long time coming for Puma. They've, I saw the first kind of new basketball samples 4 years ago now. So I think that those kind of things are they've been working on it a long time, and they've got a lot of cool people, even on the marketing side and the brand side of things, that I think a lot of people might know their work from other brands. So I'm excited to see what comes from it.
So Tiffany, how from a design perspective, is it any harder to do a basketball shoe than it is to do any other type of shoe?
Absolutely. I actually think basketball shoes are one of the most difficult to do, excluding some exceptions. But if you just look at running and basketball, running is a linear sport, right? You run straight. Mm-hmm. There's not so much cutting, and cutting's like stepping side to side. So basketball, there's cutting, there's running, there's jumping. The size of the athletes, I mean, these guys are all 6 foot something, some of them 7 foot, 200 plus pounds. Basketball is a very demanding sport, and it's very hard to make a shoe that's really durable for basketball. Check out LeBron's shoes. They're really engineered really well so that they last for him. And not to mention, the pro athletes, they all use their shoes, but they get new ones on a more frequent basis, right? Where most of the high school kids who are still 6 foot something, and they're still big guys, and in college, they're not getting as many shoes, so they need a pair of shoes to last a whole season. So I would say, without a doubt, basketball is much more challenging than running or training, and definitely lifestyle, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, definitely, I would see more than lifestyle. But I guess when you think of it that way, of the physical demands that fall on a basketball shoe versus the physical demands that fall on a lifestyle shoe or on a running shoe, you can see that, I guess, just engineering wise, you need to make a lot more decisions or take other things into consideration that you don't need to really take into consideration when you're doing a different type of shoe. So with Puma, stepping into this space, it's not like they're brand new to the basketball market. So I guess that's something we just need to put out there for everyone that's listening. Although it seems like you've never heard of Puma in basketball proper, you've heard of them in basketball in a lifestyle sort of sense. This isn't something that's new to them. They did basketball for a very, very long time. So stepping back into that arena, it seems it would be more of an update of their technology and an update of the styling more than it would be just stepping into this as a brand new company trying to create a basketball shoe. Help me here if make sure I'm correct here.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that, they had, obviously what we think of as lifestyle shoes primarily came from, sport at some point. So Puma's basketball dates back, decades, but they also had, a pretty solid, small but solid roster of athletes in the 90s, and they had 90s basketball shoes that I think, could potentially become retro product now, right, with the trends. But I think that, to Tiffany's point about the size of athletes in basketball, even taking that a step further, the guys that Puma signed are both big men for the most part. This is something that's different than this is something that I think is different than what most basketball shoe manufacturers are doing, because you have guys like Anthony Davis with Nike, but he's not going to have his own signature shoe. He's going to be kind of thrown in the middle of the pack of the guys that wear the hyper dunk of whatever the hyper dunk of this year is, and we throw his logo and colors on it. But with Puma, their history being with Clyde Frazier, I think gives them an interesting storytelling element of
right,
big players, and I also think that there's a tie there with big personalities. That's the future of basketball shoes to me, is this kind of the storytelling that goes into like the LeBron and the LeBron shoes and the KD shoes, to me, is the best of the best right now. And part of that is because they're actively creating content on their own platforms, on their own companies, their own stories. And it's very authentic because they're the ones doing it. And I think you could look at, to compare, you could look at somebody like Steph Curry and Under Armour. Steph is absolutely the most popular player in the NBA right now. He consistently sells the most jerseys out of all NBA players, even over, Durant and Klay Thompson and, the Warriors. But his shoes, even though they're with Under Armour, they're good shoes, but they're not able to get out of that like kind of formulaic storytelling element. And his lifestyle off the court is not connected to sneakers in the same way that someone like LeBron could be or KD could be. Steph is very much like, I'm going to go get the deal with Express Men and dress nicely, and I've got this family life. It's not about basketball so much off the court, even though we all know he puts in, probably as much or more time as any basketball player in the world.
Right.
And I think that's a really interesting thing where, if Puma plays it right, and these guys are able to build their own personalities, their own social they already have been, right? Like they've been, semi-famous for, probably 5+ years for both of them. And with the reach of somebody like Jay-Z and the connections that him being in a creative director role, as they call it, being able to connect the dots means that, who knows, like you might have this effect of like, well, now you have somebody, now basketball shoes are on, whatever rap album or in the conversation, and you're having these events that are kind of that, lifestyle that Jay-Z lives, but these guys are all wearing Puma. That could be huge, and it could definitely shift things.
I think though, you gotta look at the basketball sales. Like, you guys follow Matt Powell. He's a senior industry advisor for the NPD group. Mm-hmm. He's been talking about how basketball shoe sales have been down the last several years, right? That market's been kind of suffering. So I'd question, like, why is Puma trying to get into it? But at the same time, and the opposite sides, like, maybe this is enough to shake it up to bring basketball shoes back into being cool and popular. But, like, to me, it seems like it's a weird timing to get into basketball, to be honest.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and we talked about this with basketball being down right now. I guess you could look at it as a couple of different ways. One, like, okay, with basketball down, now's the time to get in. So when things do pick back up again, we'll be right there when things pick back up. Or do they have the staying power to withstand the cycle that's getting ready to happen? Like, obviously we're in a low cycle for basketball shoes. Can Puma stick around until things pick back up again and kind of get that name recognition and get that sort of social cachet that they're going to need once things start picking up again? So it's an interesting place for them to be in. And I hope for them the best. I'm always for adding more competition to the game and opening things up. So if this is their opportunity to really like mix up the basketball market, I'm all for it. Congrats to them, and I wish them nothing but success. I think it's a great moment to kind of see and let Puma prove their worth. They've been doing really great, I think, on the women's side of sneakers, and they're trying to get more love going on the men's side. So this is, an obvious foray into that. It seems like for men's sneakers to really work, you kind of have to have some sort of presence in that basketball world, and maybe this is part of their strategy to help build up that men's side. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because it does seem like the other brands are sleeping a little bit in the basketball arena, and Puma's definitely doing well in the women's arena. So I'm excited for it. I think it'll be a cool shakeup.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say. I think that it's interesting because there seems to be a lot of like passiveness towards basketball from a lot of the brands that have a foot there, but they're also only it seems like this big deal because they made it a publicity and then social media blows it up. But it's like like you really have two guys. Like that's like a very, very minimal entry point into what, like Jacques is saying, like maybe a potentially long-term thing if basketball comes back around. Because I think Nike probably has, a couple hundred players in the league wearing their shoes. So,
yeah.
I agree. It's just good to see, the effort to kind of take a piece of the pie and like be active in it. Because I do think that it creates opportunities for all the way up and down. If they're putting money towards it, then that means that they're going to be hiring people to, on all aspects of the business, on the design side, and hopefully like that forces the other brands to kind of, step their game up and put a little more effort. And, all the trickle down of that, I think, of the competition makes it better in the long run.
Yeah, and not to mention, back to the women's side, is like they already have Rihanna, and with Jay-Z, you know who comes with Jay-Z, right? I mean, she's not officially associated, but she's associated.
Right.
That's huge. That is really huge.
Wow. And speaking of competition, I have a note here from Dylan of the Race Lacers Competitive Shoelacing Racing League. They are the official sponsor for the Outside the Box podcast. He wanted to let me know that the Race Lacers Competitive Shoelacing Racing League has been upgraded, and they are now the Race Lacers Competitive Shoelacing Racing League of America. So they're expanding beyond North Hollywood, so it's a lot bigger thing now. It looks like there's going to be competitions in all 50 states. So if you are interested, or if you have the skill to be a competitive shoelacing racing league member, make sure you contact Dylan, and that's Dylan at Race Lacers Competitive Shoelacing Racing League of America.com. Again, Dylan at Race Lacers Competitive Shoelacing Racing League of America.com. Now, getting back to the show here, Puma, something very interesting with Puma that I wonder, do you think Puma will be using their energy cushioning in their basketball shoes? I don't know if you guys know about this, but Puma and Adidas had a bit of a rivalry going over ETPU cushioning. And Tiffany, I'm going to go ahead and lean on you for this one. Can you explain what the difference is between TPU and eTPU?
Yeah, so chemically it's slightly different, but eTPU is basically beads. Think of the styrofoam beads, right? Same thing that Boost is made out of. Those come in beads. Is that the sponsor?
Shout out to the Street Sweeper.
Yeah, sponsored. This show is also sponsored by Street Sweepers of Los Angeles. we keep the streets clean uptown and downtown, and in your neighborhood as well.
Oh man.
Yeah. So the eTPU, think of all those beads, and how they hold it together is through steam. And so it's basically like if you microwave a whole bunch of marshmallows and then they all start sticking together. That's sort of how it works. So yeah, Puma and Audi were against each other fighting over this material. Now one was from, I'm going to totally forget the names of these companies. One was from Huntsman.
BASF. One was from Huntsman and one was from BASF.
Yeah, so two different chemical companies making similar but different materials. I reviewed them both and felt them both, and they feel very, very similar. It's quite interesting. The aesthetic is slightly different, but mostly totally the same. I absolutely think Puma would use this in their basketball shoe. However, they're going to have to stabilize it quite well, and you can't go very thick with it. I don't know if you guys noticed, but with all of the Boost shoes and even the Energy shoes, they're quite thick midsoles, and that's because you need that much thickness so you're not bottoming out and you're actually feeling and getting cushioning performance. So basketball shoes usually can't be that high. I mean, the only example I can think of is like LeBron's with the airbags, but those airbags have a lot of stability in them. So it'll be super interesting. Maybe they've got a new technology. I mean, there's a lot of developments in foams. I'm sure people are trying to copy the React foam from Nike. So maybe they got something over there.
So I have a question for you, Tiffany, kind of related to that. When there's two companies like this, obviously doing different things, because I know that, like, if I remember right, the Adidas thing was actually rejected by the courts, right? Like, they tried to stop Puma, I think, because this is like from like maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So how many companies, or are there other options for these brands to go and say like, go like have somebody create me this version, or how do we take this and make it a better, a better foam, let's say, and how does that affect like, the direction of, say designers for the basketball footwear for Puma? Is it like we've committed with this company for a certain amount of time and we need to use this specific technology, or is there other options for them?
It depends on what you're going for, right? Like all innovation in footwear is basically around fit, cushioning, traction, and then otherwise it's like material. How do you get materials that are thinner, lighter weight, and stronger? So it's like every footwear brand that's in performance is talking to a chemical manufacturer or working in their team on cushioning. So it's not crazy to think that they're all coming up with similar things. Like, can you make a midsole that feels softer but gives me more energy return? Like, they're all working internally on that, and they're all going out to the vendors saying, can you do this? Can you do this? Now, certain vendors have exclusivity agreements with certain brands on certain materials. So if you call them up and they're like, no, we're locked in with Adidas, then you're going to go somewhere else. And it doesn't mean that Adidas or Puma stole one from the other. It's totally plausible that they ended up developing the same thing at the same time. I think it happens way more often than you think. In my experience in innovation at Nike and Rubbermaid, there were many times where multiple people had the same idea or a very similar idea, and it's just a result of you're only innovating so many different things. So it's super tricky. I mean, you're going to see more foams that continue to talk about more bounce and more energy return, and because they've seen that athletes are better with this and consumers like it. So you're constantly going to see evolutions in those zones.
Yeah, I feel like there's stuff we haven't even really seen yet that they have that they just need to refine and just make better. It seems like the energy return and all that stuff is such a hot topic now. It's almost like it's trendy now, and I imagine that chemical world or that science world, I don't even know what the proper name of that world is, the chemical composition world.
Chemistry.
Chemistry. Yeah, chemistry.
Material
world.
Science.
Material science. Yeah. God, make yourself look intelligent, Jacques. The material science world, that they all sort of follow trends in their own way as well. I mean, it's I don't think they're not excluded from peers and like, oh, this peer created a new eTPU that's 2% more responsive than another one, and like I feel like someone would take that as like, oh, that's a good lane, or that's a good category to work in. Am I being totally off base here?
A little bit. I would not say it follows trends. Like, look at the automotive industry. Like, carbon fiber is used because it's lightweight and super strong. The strength to weight ratio of it is incredible. Now now that they came up with that years ago, right? Now it's like, how do we improve on that? And how do we improve on that? And you get into materials with graphene, and you get into all these now titaniums and stuff, right? It's the same thing in the cushioning with the materials. Like, those vendors like Huntsman and BASF and Dow, they're all constantly trying to make materials more efficient, using less water, more sustainable, that provide the performance benefits that the consumers or the brands are asking for. So it's not a trend thing. It's more like, oh my gosh, we just invented this new thing here. And then it's like, we're going to keep inventing down this path and trying to improve it until we get to the next one, So that's how you end up with like flubber and super flubber and so on and so forth. So it's much more physics related and much more ability related versus it is trend related. Like, no brand wants to say like, oh, well, Adidas built Boost, I'm going to make a shoe that's 1% better. That's useless. Right? You're just copying, and everyone's going to say you're copying. Where if you come up with something new, or you can't forget about geometry and design. Like, that is a huge factor in getting materials to work and create different responses and different reactions. So it's not just that material, it's also the design of it, right? That's super important, in the shape of it, in the thickness. And
Right.
like you said, I'm sure there are some amazing materials that we've never seen, and brands are super hesitant to show you it if it's not durable. If they don't know they can make into a product that you can wear for a year or whatever, that you're
Right.
probably not going to see it. So there's probably amazing stuff that people would be blown away by, but the demand would get so high for it that they can't produce it, and then it's disappointment, and nobody likes that.
Right. That makes sense. That all makes sense. That all makes sense. I get it now. So I guess my invention, I won't even mention it, but I'll keep it to myself now. Thanks, Tiff.
Oh, let's hear it. Let's sell it. Let's
No.
put it out there. You got a cushioning?
No.
Is it cushioning?
No. It was really just two goose down pillows duct taped together, and I thought that was going to be the future.
Like a shoe on a shoe kind of thing.
Yeah, shoe on a shoe. And speaking of shoe on a shoe, since we're going to go down that path, I didn't want to talk about it because I thought it was crazy. But there is a shoe on a shoe. I know you guys are thinking, like, what is a shoe on a shoe? Well, it's exactly as it sounds. Was this a show? Wait, where was this a show? There was a New York Post article. Shout out to the New York Post. And there was a show where there were someone made shoes for your shoes. And I'm not sure I'm ready for this. Style wise, I'm pretty conservative. I haven't gotten to the point where my shoes wear shoes yet. But some people do that. So if you're concerned about your shoes getting dirty, or maybe you're concerned about your shoes getting wet, you can wear shoes on shoes. And this was at Paris Fashion Week?
Yep, in February.
Yep.
In February. So, yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing. If you're a forward thinker, if you don't adhere to the rules of society, if you're looking to go bigger, bolder, and not let someone tell you how you can and can't wear your shoes, then this might be the shoe for you. I'll make sure we include a link to these down in the description, because you definitely have to see these. They are shoes for your shoes. There's a Velcro strap involved, so if you're into Velcro, that might be a thing for you. I'm trying to see the brand here. Where's the brand? It doesn't say the
Sankunzen, Sankuanz, Chinese fashion brand.
Yes, Chinese fashion brand. So up your game or just get taller. Either way, this works, and it's an option for you.
Hey,
now,
question
yes.
on that, Nick. If you use these, would you be able to tell if the shoes were still dead stock?
Oh, that's actually interesting. Yeah, I mean, because it basically, like, so this shoe is basically like half Birkenstock, half like ankle brace. And so like it's equivalent of like breaking your leg, putting the brace on, and if you were to have the doctor just leave your shoe on rather than taking it off to fix yourself, like this would actually be like the version. So I mean, technically the shoe would never touch the ground. So I mean,
it's not really bending either, so it's not going to look worn, right?
Yeah, it's going to look brand new. So yeah, maybe that's the thing, we're missing it. I mean, the picture that I'm seeing is actually a pair of Air Force One mids. So maybe that's the whole. I mean, Air Force One mids are always kind of the stepchild of the Air Force One line. But yeah, I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe we're just missing the point. Now I can keep all my dead stock shoes by buying these shoes for my shoes.
Yeah, and people, I know you guys think we're making this up. You think that this isn't true, but I promise you, this is absolutely 100% true. And I will include the links. I want you guys to see this, and then you guys let me know what you think about that down in the comments, or tweet us or DM us and let us know what you think about the Sankunz shoes for shoes. But continuing with I feel like we've kind of got this trend going on the show where we do like sustainability is kind of a topic that we talk about. And one of the things we found is that there is a shoe made out of recycled chewing gum. So I'm going to let Tiffany take this one just because I'm not even sure how something like that would even work.
I mean, I wasn't either. I guess if you, from a material standpoint, gum is kind of like rubber, right? Like a really soft rubber. And so this article talks about how they reprocessed used chewing gum and how much chewing gum there is all over the place, which is shocking. People definitely don't throw it away. And they talk about how they reprocessed it to become the outsole. So literally, like when you say gum outsole, it's literally gum outsole, right? So I think it's kind of interesting. True. I mean, I'm wondering about the process. Like, is everyone's saliva still in there, or is that giving extra traction? But yeah, this is a real deal. They have a company name listed there, talking about where they did this and how they did it.
Yeah, so the company is called Gumshoe, and they made it's basically a shoe made from recycled gum through a collaboration between sustainable material maker Gumdrop, Amsterdam, and a fashion company called Explicit. The company says this is just gross. The company says every 2.2 pounds of discarded gum translates into 4 pairs of sneakers, which is so. Just the fact that there's 2.2 pounds of gum, discarded gum, just makes me want to throw up a little bit. But I imagine it's not just a completely gum outsole. I imagine they're just mixing that gum into like another rubber compound, is what I'm guessing to make the outsole.
Well,
I
mean, 2.2 pounds to make 4 pairs. So that's a half pound per pair. That would be really heavy outsoles, like really heavy. So that's a lot of gum, unless they lose a lot of it in processing. I don't know. We should get a pair. And I wonder if it smells like bubble gum or like what.
That's my main thing. I want it to smell like bubblegum.
I mean, do you have to wear gloves to put it on so you don't like get mono from it though? Like,
all right.
I mean, it's probably
we're
sticky.
leaving this one.
It's probably definitely sticky.
You get the traction.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
The funny thing, I'm going to show my age here real quick, but the funniest thing about this to me is when I saw the Gumshoe name, I immediately thought of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego from my childhood. So where like the contestants on the show were called Gumshoes.
Gumshoes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's very true. Yep.
So now, we're probably losing subscribers by saying how old we are right now. But
you lost me.
Or how old I am. Yeah. Exactly.
But just so you guys know, these shoes aren't cheap. They're actually $232, and they'll be available. Actually, they're available this month in June. So if you're up on game and you want to wear something I guess no one else is wearing, you can get the Gumshoes. Again, we'll put a link down in the description so you could upgrade your game. Before we get out of here, I do want to say that we have a new sponsor on the show today, which I'm very proud of. I need to get one of those buttons where you can get like an applause and I'd be like, new sponsor. Today's extra sponsor, not knocking the Race Lacers, but we do have another sponsor called Socks for Your Socks. They are a new sponsor, and their tagline is, guess, go ahead, put it in the description. You're probably wrong, but it's "We prevent holes." If you've ever been worried about getting holes in your socks, we have socks to stop you from getting holes in your socks. It's a new thing. It's the new trend, and we're all about it here on Outside the Box Podcast. We think outside the box, and we also think outside our socks. Socks for Socks, the new sponsor. We prevent holes. As always, guys, I want to thank you for watching and listening to the Outside the Box podcast. I am Jacques Slade, a.k.a. Cousteau. You can find me all over the internet at Kustoo. We love your comments and your feedback, so make sure you leave that for us. But this show would not be what it is without the other two hosts. Nick, go ahead and tell them where to find you.
Nick Engvall, NickEngvall on all platforms, and also at Sneaker History on all platforms. Tiffany, how about you?
Tiffany Beers, Tiffany, B as in boy, EERS. And it's on Instagram and YouTube.
And with that, we want to say goodbye. Again, big shout out to the Race Lacers and Socks for Your Socks. We appreciate your sponsorship and the money that you give us. As always, guys, we appreciate you, and we'll see you guys and let's talk to you guys soon. Peace.